Welcome back to this corner of the podcast business, formerly Ravens Recap, now One Winning Pod, with your hosts, Alec, Chris, guest star correspondent KFisch, and myself, the namer of this podcast, if I do say so myself.
Peter.
You can drop your name there?
Do we have to announce you?
Yeah, Peter. Yeah, no. For those who missed it, we left a teaser at the end of last pod. We're rebranding, so no longer Ravens Recap. We've rebranded to One Winning Pod. The funny story about this, if you hadn't listened to the teaser, is that this was Peter's actual original name for the podcast way back in 2019. Alec and I outvoted him. We decided to be Ravens Recap, and what do you know? We rebranded. We picked Peter's old name, so we're back. One Winning Pod. Check all your social medias. We're going to leave some notes and make sure this transition is smooth. So you guys won't have to do much stuff for right now. But please, if you haven't already, check out One Winning Pod on Twitter. That's going to be our new handle, and you're going to get the same content as always, just with a new name, new logo. It's going to be pretty sweet.
And yet again, we want to give credit where credit's due. EDC Burner made the new art for us, both their avatar and the show art, and we love it. It's really cool. I always wanted to make a polo with the Ravens Recap logo, and now I definitely want to make some merch, even if it's just for us, of One Winning Pod, because I think it's a cool logo.
I'll proudly wear it to work on Purple Fridays, on Purple Mondays, every day of the week.
Every day is a purple day. It's really cool too. I kind of alluded to it in a tweet I had sent out that I kind of was hoping that maybe, and that's why we teased it, we could do the draft preview shows as One Winning Pod, because that's how we started many years ago, was a draft preview show and then the draft recap. So kind of being able to tease it around this time of year does feel like almost a new season, so to speak, of the show. And with that, we got the schedule release for this season. We knew the teams, but now we know the order and the time. And I'm pretty excited, man. Obviously, bias here because the four of us, that's why Correspondent KFisch is here, are going to be at a lot more games now that we got PSLs. So, yeah, it's a really exciting time.
Let me first say thanks for having me on again, guys. And thanks for Peter calling me a star. Greatly appreciated. Yeah. Not to repeat Alec, but I'm super excited because, we do have PSL, so I will be locked into hopefully 10 games. We'll see how that goes. And then, a bunch of playoff games at home as well. And I think we have a lot of good games at home too. So that's always good stuff.
Unfortunately, we don't start the season at home, though. We do start at the Jets, a classic Flacco revenge game.
Absolutely. And if not, if Flacco won't be on the field himself, he'll be coaching up his son. Zach Wilson let the world know that apparently Joe Flacco is his dad. Spoiler alert. I'm not sure if Flacco's wife knew about that. They might want to discuss that a bit. But he had enough kids with her. I'm sure it's fine. But anyways, yeah, this is an interesting game to start off the season. You look at it on face and you're just like, the Ravens get it, the Jets in week one, layup. But at the same time, you look at that Jets offense, a lot of young players with a lot of potential. It'll be Salah's second year there, so he'll have some more time under his feet to instill the culture that he wants there. I think that you could look at this Jets team as a team that could play spoiler to the Ravens in week one if they're not careful. They could also be a team that has a lot of potential this year, but just isn't ready in week one to start maximizing that. And then actually, the Ravens lucked out by the schedule makers there and getting them at a little bit of an easier time. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting way to kick off the season for the Ravens, in my opinion.
Yeah, I honestly thought I was going to be in the minority here. I think this game, the show now should put potential trap game. I think it's going to, and if you want to call it that, that's fine. I think this game's going to be closer than expected. I think the Jets showed that they are going to take a step in the right direction under Robert Saleh. I looked up his first name, and then say what you want. They drafted well. I think the three dudes they grabbed in the first round all are hits that they can expect, to contribute, and we'll probably see week one. That being said, Ravens are still going to win. The other like funny narrative is like Sauce hasn't given up any touchdowns in his collegiate career, so everybody's saying Bateman gets the first one on him to start the year.
Let's
I love
go.
that narrative. Yeah, I'm here for that.
So something else we just learned about the Jets right now is that their starting secondary is going to be basically all new. Obviously, they got Sauce Gardner there from the draft. DJ Reed is their opposite starting cornerback, at least projected right now, coming in from Seattle. Jordan Whitehead, they got from Tampa Bay. LaMarcus Joyner, he was on the team last year but only played one game. So that'll be another interesting thing to see here, how the Ravens' first game, Hollywood Brown less with this receiving crew, does against this new secondary for the Jets.
I imagine if you ask some Ravens fans, they'll be like, well, why don't you just trade a Marcus Williams? They need a safety. We need a receiver, right?
I hope that was just one fan on Twitter. I think it was.
Yeah, it was definitely one fan because there was about 1,000 fans just piling onto this man.
Oh, gosh.
I will say, good for you for thinking of an idea no one else was thinking about. But there was a reason that no one else was thinking about that idea, and that's all I'll say on that.
Ravens Twitter had a day today, and nothing really happened today. So I don't even know what really sparked.
No, something did happen today. They lost out on Geronimo Allison.
Yeah, like I said, nothing really happened. They had Geronimo in. He did not leave with a contract. That was the end of that. Yeah, I get it. It's kind of like a dead time for hot takes, but that one was extra bad just to get the convo going.
Yeah. Well, we have a whole offseason to talk about who the Ravens aren't going to sign at wide receiver, so let's go on to the next week. Week 2, revenge game against the Dolphins. I'm excited for this one. This is the first home game of the season. This is going to be great. Definitely going to be a game that we're going to see a lot of. We're going to see if Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters are back, because they're going to have quite a challenge with them against Hill and Waddle. And obviously the Ravens went to Miami last year and they did not have a good game at all. They definitely, want to get that sour taste out of their mouth, respectively. I think this is a great game, a great choice, I think, for the NFL to choose the first home game of the season. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Something I'm really looking forward to for this matchup is we'll get to see how Kyle Hamilton matches up at the NFL level against athletic tight ends. We talked last year about how with the Dolphins against the Ravens defense, if they shut out Mike Gesicki, you basically shut out the Dolphins offense. And they did that and did shut out the Dolphins offense and then proceeded to not score points. But anyways, what'll be interesting about this game, though, is now you got Jalen Waddle in year 2. Jalen Waddle was actually starting to come along at that game as well. And they got Tyreek Hill as well. The Dolphins brought in Mike McDonald and signed a slew of running backs, including Raheem Mostert and Chase Edmonds. So we'll see what Tua is, but again, I think this might be the Ravens catching a team at a good time. It's going to take some time for all these offensive weapons to gel. So, this seems on paper like it should be a very winnable home opener for the Ravens simply because of when they're playing them and that it is at home. But at the same time, if the Dolphins get off to a faster start than we're expecting, we're going to see pretty quickly how far along in their recoveries Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters are, because Hill and Waddle are going to give them quite a bit of fits.
Just a quick edit. I led you guys on the wrong path. It's McDaniel, not McDonald. The other Mickey D.
Yeah. So back to the game. I actually was looking at this game differently, where you guys kind of focused on the defense. I think this is, this will be telling for Giro, right? Because that was the game where he's kind of considered he was extremely exposed, could not handle the all-out blitz. So now you have a whole off season. This game's coming up. Everybody should be healthy. If you can't deal with that again, major red flags for the whole season. And that might just be like a little bit of hyperbole, but I'll be very concerned if we put up as many points as we did last year.
Good game for the Ravens to have to bounce back with, kind of define the season, define an outlook. I really do hope that, we are able to go ahead and win it for all the reasons you guys stated. Definitely will be a very interesting game. Biggest challenge of the season so far, I think is safe to say.
In week 2?
Well, so far, yeah. Against the Jets, compared to the Jets.
So, and another thing, that's Bateman probably gets Howard, right? You would think, the cornerback for the Dolphins. So I would say that's going to be more indicative of what Bateman's season would look like over, first game for Sauce and then DJ Reed, who's just kind of there.
Well, moving on to week 3, we got another AFC East matchup. I just realized this, guys. I don't know if we were clear about this. The first 4 weeks of the season, we played the AFC East.
Yep. Just get it out of the way.
Just get it all out of the way. Yeah. So week 3 at Patriots. This one would be a little bit interesting, although I got to be honest, at least out of the first 2 games, I feel like I'm like least upset about this one. I don't know. I feel like the Patriots have had a few guys leave. One guy, you were talking about all these good cornerbacks, but J.C. Jackson no longer in New England, so he's not going to be there. So I think Bateman will have a little bit more room to work in this game. But, obviously Mac Jones still young. I mean, he's an ascending quarterback. He's going to be somebody that Mike McDonald is going to have to game plan around and kind of have a plan for him. But, I could kind of see this going either way. I mean, Belichick obviously is always really hard coach to game plan around. He's going to have some tricks that he has, and he's just going to play us really well. But yeah, I feel like if you were to ask me, last year that we had to play the Patriots this year, maybe I'd be a little bit more scared. But yeah, I mean, there's a long time between now and this game, so we'll see some reports out of camp and see kind of where the Patriots are going at the next couple months.
Yeah, I don't have too many feelings about this game. It's one of the least interesting games almost to me of the season. Not to say that the Patriots aren't a well-coached team or have potential and all that. It's just I'm not that invested in their narrative. I don't think this is their year at all. And I think they're more in the middle of their transition. A lot of the things they've done for roster building, like drafting Cole Strange in the first round, is questionable. So I just don't know. I don't know. I'm not as in tune with what the Patriots are doing right now, or even eager to see where they go. I just think they're a team that is well coached and they'll punch above their weight class for a while, but their weight class is not necessarily that intimidating.
They feel like a 2016 Ravens.
That's interesting. I take a completely different stance. I mean, maybe it's me giving too much credit to Belichick and that organization, which is always putting out a winner with Tom Brady, obviously, but let's not forget, this team went 10-7 with a rookie quarterback last year, Mac Jones, who, was he a highlight reel level player? No, but he was certainly the quarterback who had the most success of anyone in the class last year. Of course, you could argue he had the best defense, of all those teams and was in the best situation, despite the fact of really not having terribly many playmakers around him. But I think Mac Jones had a very encouraging year one to at least look like, an above average, like he can be an above average quarterback in this league. And let's not forget, around week 10 or 11, Patriots went on a big win streak. And a lot of the NFL world was saying, Patriots, they could make a deep playoff run this year. Now, granted, I think each of us didn't buy it, and we ended up being correct on that. But I just can't count a Bill Belichick team out. I obviously don't like the Patriots, but I respect the football minds in that organization. So I'm actually really excited for this game, and I think week 3 is a great time for it. Again, you're catching them early. You don't really want to go into New England in the second half of the season when there's bad weather. We definitely saw how that can be unideal in 2020. So, yeah, all in all, I think this is an interesting matchup for the Ravens.
Yeah, I didn't realize they signed Jabril Peppers. That's one of those guys that I always had my eye on for the Ravens because I just thought he was super movable around in the defense. And he hasn't panned out as much as his first round draft grade and kind of the hype. I think he was a Heisman candidate, if I remember. which is unheard of for defensive players. But that could be a good signing. They still have Judon. I think that, I mean, Belichick has a way of just, what's the saying, grinding juice out of a stone or something. He's going to get the most out of these guys, and there's some names there that could be interesting. I think this game, they always play us close. We always play them close. It's just one of those games. It's not going to be a blowout by any means. I mean, they were able to give us, even with the weather, they were able to give us a hard game with Cam Newton as quarterback. So I think Mac Jones is definitely better than that. Hopefully we get better weather, but I think this is going to be a tough game. I'm not as bored of it as some of the others on the podcast.
Damn, I just called out.
Jeez.
Hey, no, this is great. We can't all have the same opinion on every game. Then it's going to be
me coping with the fact
right, we wouldn't have a pod.
It's just me coping with the fact that I'm going to be at the festival making Slovakia and probably not able to watch this game closely. So I'm like, the Patriots are garbage. They're not that interesting. They're just a middling team. Get out of here.
Did you guys put in the show notes Ty Montgomery revenge game for this one as well?
Ty Montgomery's there too.
Adjust your ranks.
Oh man.
Yeah. So between the Dolphins and the Patriots and the Jets, we're probably playing the most running backs possible ever in 3 weeks. Ignoring the fact that half of those people will be cut by the time the game comes around. But I mean, yeah, they have Patriots have 5 running backs that I guess will make the team. And then if you include Ty Montgomery, that's a 6th one. And then you got Dolphins have 17 running backs, I think.
19. I think they just signed Devonta Freeman and Latavius Murray while we're recording this pod.
solid death if you lose your top 5 people.
All right, guys, this is the big one. Obviously, the Rumorville was full of this one being a Thanksgiving game, and I'm so thankful that it's not 1:00, just standard. Unfortunately, the Bills are getting the same treatment the Chiefs have gotten for all these years early in the year. It'd be really cool to have them at the end of the year, but we'll get to that matchup later for another team in our division. It's going to be electric. It's a shame this is not prime time. These are 2 smaller market teams that if these guys were on the Cowboys and I don't know. What's another like America's team?
Bucks. I don't know.
Bucks. I don't know. Cowboys and I don't know.
Steelers.
San Francisco, right? I don't know. This would be prime time to the extreme,
Panthers.
right?
Definitely not the Panthers.
All right. Well, anyways, you know what I mean. This is gonna be a fun game. I'm so excited to go. This is the one that I said I will move things if I need to get there. I can't wait for this game.
Yeah, I too was shocked. I would have to look at what the primetime game is this week. To me, this should have been easily the game of the week without knowing the other games. But I'm super happy that it's at home.
Wow, garbage games. Actually, they're
Cowboys-
not that bad. They're not that bad.
Is it a Cowboys game though? The Sunday night game.
It's Thursday's Dolphin and Bengals, which is interesting. We'll get into that for the next matchup.
Yeah,
and
that's not
then Sunday night is Kansas City Chiefs and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Monday night, Rams and 49ers.
Okay, I retract my
If
statement.
only Brady stayed retired, all right, we would have gotten this slot.
Well, why did the game have to be week 4? Look, we'll get to it later, but I've got a major bone to pick with the game time of a certain game, but we'll get to that later. And why that game is a primetime game and not Ravens Bills just blows my mind like few things ever have.
A few things ever have. Stay tuned, guys. It's going to get good.
All right.
All right, well, we didn't really talk about this game at all.
We're talking so much about how we're upset about, when this game is, but at the same time, I do think that week 4 though is fine. The first 3 weeks of the season, teams they're getting their legs under them, players are getting in shape. You're slowly ramping up and your offensive and defensive schemes, from your basic stuff you run in preseason to the more complex schemes that you actually want to run during the season. I feel like week 4 is really the kickoff of the actual NFL season when teams are finally ready for prime time. So in that sense, I think that I get what you're saying and do agree it would have been better if this game was later in the season. But I think this is late enough, barely. But yeah, this is going to be an excellent game. Technically, I'm going to say it's round 2 of Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen because that first matchup, Josh Allen was not Josh Allen yet. Again, another great test for the secondary. You got Diggs. You got the new greatest wide receiver in NFL history, Gabriel Davis. You got Isaiah McKenzie there as well. And obviously, Josh Allen is a threat with the ball in the air. You can make the argument he's the second best rushing quarterback in the NFL. You really could. So I'm really interested to see what Mike McDonald whips up for this one. I think we're going to see some schemes left in the vault, in his own vault. And we'll actually see things. We'll actually see things released from them, unlike Greg Roman's vault. Some really interesting defensive packages that the Ravens won't have rolled out yet. I could definitely see being revealed in this matchup. So it should be a great matchup, and I think really fun film study after the game too.
The Bills game is also interesting because they've drafted a lot of players that were linked to the Ravens, or that at least Ravens Twitter was interested in. For instance, the savior of the wide receiver class, Khalil Shakir, went there. Also, punt god Matt Ariza went there. So interesting players, and Karier Elam, cornerback, went there. So a lot of yeah, I know that one's a little more controversial, obviously, but a lot of interesting players went to them. So it'll be cool to watch and see how they're performing by week 4 in their rookie season.
Didn't that happen last year too?
Yeah,
I want to say Ray brought that up with the DN that we were kind of looking at, and they ended up
Espinoza.
Yeah, and
that was 2 years ago. Last year was Greg Rousseau.
Oh yeah, well,
Yeah.
I think both of those were at one time, mocked to the Ravens, and we thought they could be possible picks. So it seems to be happening. We had that happen a lot with the Patriots back in the day too. Most notably Gronk and that other tight end.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, I don't know. Elam definitely should not have been mocked to the Ravens. If anybody did mock him, this is just not the pick. But yeah,
is that a talent standpoint or just purely name?
A little bit of both. I think he's going to be a penalty machine. Just like, I don't know. There's like a level of aggression of like you can be physical and aggressive, and like that's why I wanted Stingley. Stingley was like he had like the right level of like physicality and finesse, and like would have been a perfect pick. But Houston picked him at 3 overall, which is crazy. And Elam is just like, you look at him play, and I don't know. It's just like he's going to be called for holding, pass interference, holding, pass interference. It would have been crazy. So, but yeah, it doesn't help that his cousin bombed for the Ravens. So
speaking of his uncle, is he in the USFL yet, or is he done?
Oh, that's a good question.
Nobody's watching that.
Wikipedia.
Alec, you're not getting in on DraftKings for the USFL?
No sir. I think we can move along to the Bengals game.
I think so too.
So all right, primetime finally. I think this might be the longest we had to wait for a primetime game in a season for the Ravens in several years. Week 5, Sunday Night Football. I'm excited. Home game. Bring the energy. Feels like a blackout. But I think, this is interesting for many reasons. The Bengals play Thursday night, so they will have more rest going into this game. The good news is that they actually play Monday Night Football against the Bills before we play them again in Week 18. So they got the same matchup before the game as we do, but later in the season. So take that as you will. And I'm excited though for this game. Obviously, Ravens. If we thought the revenge game against the Dolphins was a revenge game, this is a revenge game squared with the beatdowns the Bengals gave us in 2 showings last year.
Matt Elam currently plays for the Edmonton Elks, in case anyone was wondering. But
is that the Canadian Football League?
Yep, he's in the Canadian Football League now.
Go.
Dang, gets paid with maple syrup. That's awesome.
Anyways, yeah, I mean,
Is that what you told Cole as well?
Yeah, he gets paid with maple syrup too.
oh man, yeah, I don't know which game the Ravens have a bigger, circle around on the calendar right now. Is it the rematch from the last playoff game that the franchise has been in, or I should say most recent, or is it against this new division rival who absolutely knocked their socks off last year, both when they were healthy and when they weren't? It's really interesting that the NFL put these two games back to back, because obviously the Ravens, if they want to make a strong statement early in the season, the first three games are important, but these two are absolute must-win. Well, you can't say they're must-wins this early in the year, but they kind of are, because we know that the Bills are going to be one of the front runners in the AFC. They've just been completely electric under Josh Allen. It's ever since he's had his awakening. And the Bengals, if they lose big 3 times in a row, that's not going to be good. So I'm sure that the Ravens have plenty of preparation here for this game, and hopefully they can get a win, because this will be the first. Not only, do the Ravens have to think about that both their games last year against this team did not go well, but after this game, the Ravens aren't getting a divisional game for a while. So because of that as well, I think you're looking at this, and a victory here is more important than it usually would be. Scratch that. What am I talking about? The Browns are 2 weeks later.
They are but they are. But I get your point though, because I'm looking at it like they do have five AFC matchups the first 5 weeks, right? So they have a chance to go up if they can win a lot of those games. Like they're definitely going to have a leg up in the conference. But no, between week 6 and the bye, and right after the bye week, basically we're playing the NFC South. So 4 matchups there. Also playing the Giants as well. So they definitely will have room to work with if they win a lot of these games up through week 5. They could probably afford to drop a few of these matchups kind of in October, early November. But definitely this is one of those schedules where the first 5 weeks are super important and the last 5 weeks super important.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback off of Peter's point of this being kind of a must-win, it's not a must-win, but these 2 games will really kind of shape the seeding if we look too far ahead at playoffs. You figure we're going to be going up against the Bengals and the Bills for seeding. So if you kind of drop those games, it's kind of like a twofer. You lose the head-to-head, so not only do you lose the game, but you have to be above them a game as well. So those are 2 huge games back to back. And then kind of a different point, I feel like, I can't speak for the players, but at least from the fan standpoint, I feel like the Bengals game is the one that the Ravens fans are circling. I feel like there's a mutual respect between Buffalo fans and Ravens fans, but all last year we had to hear about how Joe Burrow was basically Jesus Christ himself reincarnated. So that would feel great to get this one and just kind of stop that narrative really early.
Definitely, I'm looking forward to this revenge game for sure.
After the Bengals, it's crazy. You're looking at these games, and some of them look more winnable than others, but there's no layups at all in the beginning of the schedule, and that continues with Week 6 at the Giants. And sure, Giants offensively, it doesn't look good for them, but obviously Wink Martindale's there now. He knows the Ravens offense. We're going to finally get to see what a Ravens offense will look like and try and exploit what they can in this scheme for the Giants. And who knows? We'll see how much of Wink's concepts will be in play when the Ravens are there. But I'm sure Wink is going to want to win that game. And we know that the Ravens have had issues with pressure, so this will be a good test to see how healthy the offensive line is in this game.
I was kind of like looking at their defense. Does Wink really have the guys to run what he was running in Baltimore? Because his whole thing was kind of leaving those cornerbacks on an island, letting your safeties, also guard tight ends. Like I'm looking at their depth chart. I actually like Adoree Jackson. I think he's not a top 10 corner or someone like that, but I think he's a decent corner. But I mean, that's kind of where it kind of falls off
I mean, for sure, they missed out on. I mean, they picked 5, right? So they missed out on the top 2 corners at that point. They weren't going to reach for that, but they did pick up Kayvon Thibodeau. So he's got a good edge rusher piece. But yeah, certainly like the corner situation is not great. And also the Giants just ended up releasing James Bradbury as well. I'm not entirely sure if that was it like a scheme fit thing or like a culture thing, but he was also a top corner for them. And so he's not going to be there, which, I mean, great for us. But yeah, it's certainly like you're not going to have the corners that he had in Baltimore for sure.
Yeah, I think it was a cap thing. They saved like $10 million, which, I mean, I guess they technically gave to Galladay to score no touchdowns. So solid choice there. Definitely a choice I would recommend for all teams, not Ravens.
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting team. This is obviously the last year of Daniel Jones's contract. They're trying to figure out what to do going forward. Yeah, we'll see if Kadarius Toney's playing for the team by the time we play them. I know he's been chattered about getting traded. A lot of interesting dynamics going on there. They got Evan Neal, which was one of the top tackle prospects in the draft. So they'll have a better line than they did last year. And of course, like Thibodeau is very interesting to watch and see his progression. But yeah, I mean, this is just an interesting team. I kind of view it, they're a lesser version of the Patriots game, in my opinion, as far as interestingness. But yeah, we'll see how it goes.
That's interesting with your favorite player on that team.
It's not my favorite player.
Oh, is Pettis on the Giants now?
No.
Saquon.
I meant his other favorite player.
Oh.
Tyson Williams? Alec has too many favorite players. I will say, I think the big thing with this game is Wink's scheme, does it fit the players? If it does, maybe this could slow down the Ravens offense, but I think it does look like right now a game that if the Ravens score 14 points, they probably come out of this one with a win.
Yeah, with how it is right now, I kind of agree with you.
You don't like the Wan'Dale Robinson pick, or?
I do, but I don't like who's throwing him the football.
Well, I mean, week 6 it could be Tyrod, so.
It could be. I love Tyrod, but there's a reason Tyrod's been a journeyman backup for now.
Bad luck.
Right.
That's the only reason.
Exactly. And you can't fight bad luck. So, I mean, that means if he has to go against the Ravens, he's going to get sacked 5 times and Kyle Hamilton's going to have 2 pick sixes. So,
Oh, love that.
Bad luck follows you everywhere.
That would be a breakout game. Did you guys know Jihad Ward is on this team?
I did. Yeah, that's awesome. Good for him.
Yeah, he followed Wink, yeah.
Wink, Justin Ellis, too.
Yeah, Wink was all about getting his guys back. Very cool.
Right.
He didn't want Chuck Clark? That was the...
I think we didn't want to give up Chuck Clark for the price. I honestly think there's lots of teams interested in Chuck Clark, but not as much as we're interested in having Chuck Clark. And it'll all work out.
Yeah. It's the classic problem where you have a player who is worth more to you than he is to the average NFL team. Mm-hmm. So you're going to need to get more back from him than a team who wants him would justifiably do because he doesn't have the same worth there.
Yeah, that is the perfect summary of the current situation of Chuck Clark.
So week 7 is interesting.
Mark Andrews week.
Yes, versus the Browns at home, 1:00 game. This is interesting because at the time of the recording, the Watson verdict is not in, although apparently they're wrapping up the investigation. So we'll see if he is eligible to play this game. Week 7 is suspiciously more than 6 games, which feels like a suspension length of which might be given. So wouldn't be shocked if it's his debut. I love to whoop his ass in his first game back. So bring it.
Alec, do you not think Deshaun Watson is good?
Like I said, I can't wait to whoop his ass at M&T Bank.
Based on the conversation we had like a couple months ago, everybody here thinks Deshaun Watson is not as good as the rest of the NFL thinks.
I think we all think he's varying forms of overrated. Just some of us think he's more overrated than others.
Yeah, I'm probably sitting somewhere near Alec where I just think he's just a stat patter. It looks real good when you throw 5 touchdowns, but you're behind by 2 the whole time. 2 touchdowns. Looks super great.
Yeah.
Yeah, if anybody wants to join our Deshaun Watson sucks echo chamber, feel free to reach out at One Wing Pod.
I mean, for me, it's more so like I don't think he's someone who can transcend Cleveland's bad culture, and like it's just
He just made it worse.
Yeah, I mean, he did actually end up. At first I was like, why did they pick Cleveland over those other teams? But I do remember, back when we were doing our sleeper dynasty startup draft. And, we're saying, where's Deshaun Watson going to go? I said, he's probably going to go to the place that offers him the best offensive line after everything he had to endure in Houston. And lo and behold, Cleveland, probably the best offensive line in the NFL. That's where he's at. But you're throwing to Amari Cooper, who is, inconsistent to say the least. And that's pretty much it. I don't know. I know everyone's going to say, you've heard the argument, oh, well, who did he have in Houston after DeAndre Hopkins was gone? Last time Watson was on the field, he was throwing bombs to Brandon Cooks and Will Fuller, who are both, I don't know, better than
Donovan Peoples-Jones, Amari Cooper.
I would rather have 2019 Brandon Cooks and Will Fuller. I'm sorry. I think he had better weapons in Houston, but we continue to throw flame on the fire on this, don't we?
Yeah.
I think it's really nice of you, to say something nice about Deshaun Watson. I think it's really nice of you to say that he went to Cleveland because the O-line was better and not because they guaranteed $1 billion over the next 5 years.
Well, they also guaranteed he's going to have less medical bills in his future.
Yeah. And they also, made his salary such that when he does get suspended, because he will be suspended, that he doesn't lose barely any money. I just assumed that was like the driving factor for him. Maybe that's a judge of his character that he doesn't deserve, but it is what it is.
Oh, it certainly helped him, sure.
He was slated to the Saints at one point. They have a decent O-line, I think, and they just drafted Penning. I mean, he made his decision after the fact, but I'm trying to think of the other teams. I mean, you're definitely right. All right. Falcons.
Well, look, we got ripped when we said no good things about Deshaun Watson because apparently the entire Twitter world is defending Deshaun Watson, the football player, like crazy. So I had to say some nice things about him. So
I'm sure Owe is going to sack him and then gently put him down on the turf while everyone else wraps up his legs.
Tuck him in.
But as a football game, as an actual football game, regardless of whether or not Deshaun Watson is actually good with the Cleveland Browns, which even if you're the most ardent, Deshaun Watson, the football player defender, I mean, we still don't know. Like I said, it's Cleveland. They've ruined many players' careers before of the same talent, of a similar talent caliber to Watson. But yeah, it's so hard to say what this game is going to look like from at this state time. That it's kind of like, I don't think we can talk anything else about it.
Yeah. I would say, though, even without the Watson variable, I think the Stefanski offense is still going to be the Stefanski offense, which is predominantly based around running the ball, third down play action, don't get into long third down. So, I mean, that's not going to change. At the end of the day, whether Watson's there or not, the first goal, I'm sure if you ask the Ravens defense, will be stop the run. So, that will always be the case. And kind of like you guys noted, the first goal for Cleveland will be stop Mark Andrews because most times they don't.
Yeah, good luck with that. Next game, short week at Tampa Bay. It's Thursday Night Football. Tom Brady will probably still not be retired at this point. And this is interesting. The Ravens are 1-5 all time as a road team on Thursday Night Football, but 7-1 as the home team.
That makes perfect sense, right? You waste a day to travel, or at least a couple hours. I mean, you lose time. You got to go somewhere. I mean, that makes perfect sense. It sucks that that's the game we're going to see future Hall of Famer Tom Brady.
Feels winnable, but given the stacked deck against the Ravens, is probably one of the games that you want to assign an L to if you're doing your all too early prediction of wins losses. Just because of, it historically difficult, not just for the Ravens, but for any team to perform on Thursday night on the road.
Yeah, it's really frustrating that the NFL schedule makers did this. It's like, you got to wonder if Tom Brady is trying to go out so that the last time he plays, every team in the NFL was a win for him. Because, like, if they just, like you said, this is a game the Ravens can win. Tom Brady, is probably the best quarterback of all time, but you look at the weapons he has outside of, his good buddy Gronk is gone. Mike Evans is still there. Godwin's been dealing with a lot of injuries recently, and there's questions as to when he's going to be back at full strength. No AB there. This Bucs offense is not going to be quite as explosive as it was the past 2 seasons. I would presume right now. Watch them be, even more explosive. It just seems like a game that could completely winnable for the Ravens, but you put them in the absolute worst spot, and you got to look at it right now that it's going to be a loss just because of the Tom Brady factor and the travel factor and the humidity coming from, mild autumn in Baltimore down to the Florida humidity. So, but it's only the thing that I'm second.
That wasn't it
out on this schedule.
Oh no,
that's not the one.
Okay.
No, that's not the one.
I guess I thought it was a foregone conclusion. Gronk would be back. He's just like drinking White Claws right now, and he doesn't want to think about football, and he's going to give it a couple weeks and come back. So I was always assuming that he would be there. I guess I was kind of wondering if Godwin will be back for this game, right? Because that's in
right.
Isn't that start to be the window of opportunity he could possibly be back for?
I have no fantasy shares of Chris Godwin, so I actually don't know when he comes back at all.
That sounds right, though. I mean, we'll see. I will say they got Cade Otton, one of our favorite tight ends in this year's draft. So maybe Gronk doesn't have as much reason to come back. You can let Cade do this thing.
$5 to $10 million to catch passes from Tom Brady. I think he'll be back.
I'm sure he will be. I'm just saying I like Cade Otton.
I mean, they do need another one. OJ Howard left for the Bills, I believe, actually. So yeah, I mean, they could use a second tight end, even if they're only around for 8 games at most. Like
Cameron Brate's still there, isn't he?
Yeah, Brate's still there. I'm surprised you didn't mention. I was pretty sure you drafted him, or at least grabbed him. Isn't Gage on this team now? Isn't he technically wide receiver 2?
Oh, I traded him away.
Oh,
all shares were gone.
Gage is a fine player, but if Humphrey and Peters are healthy, I don't think Gage is too much of an issue for the Ravens secondary. Evans is a beast, though.
And possible revenge game, which is every other game of these. Rashad Perriman's currently on the Tampa Bay roster.
Adjust.
Moving on to the actual game that is the one that has me completely confused. Why is this game Monday night? Can someone tell me why in the world Ravens at the Saints is Monday night?
Easy. Here's why.
Okay.
The Ravens...
And don't tell me Marcus Williams' revenge game.
The Ravens are getting all the rest they can after their Tampa Bay Thursday night game by playing Monday night the week after. So they'll have the most rest possible when playing the Saints to then go win and then go into their bye week. So there you go. Also, a lot of people think the Saints are better than I think maybe the consensus of this pod is. And the Saints certainly think they're better than the consensus of this pod because they're all about loading up for this year. They got Landry, and Ravens threw in shambles earlier this week.
Drew Brees, hey,
so,
he's not a commentator anymore. He might come back. He said he'd think about it.
Just
his hair just started growing back.
Oh, Drew.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is negative. I think the point that Peter was attempting to make, that Alec wasn't hitting on, was that the Saints just don't feel like a Monday night primetime game type of team. I think they look good on paper. We'll see how it goes. I think you're praying for a lot from Jameis. He kind of showed you that they were kind of worried to put the ball in his hand last year. I don't see any reason why that would change just because Landry's there and Olave they drafted. Yeah, it's kind of a ho-hum. If we're going to assign games, this is my Alex Patriots game. Just like, it's nice. Okay.
Yeah, and you hit exactly on what I was trying to say. I mean, yeah, the Saints might be a very good football team this year. Defensively, I think it's going to be an interesting matchup between the Ravens offense and defense. I just look at there's so many other games on the schedule that if I were to schedule makers, I would have put there, just not just from, perspective of a Ravens fan, but from like an NFL perspective as well. I mean, obviously Ravens-Bills, better matchup, better storylines. Ravens-Broncos, better matchup, better storyline. Steelers, neither of the Steelers games are primetime right now. There's no history between these two franchises. I don't know. It's extremely odd choice from any angle you look at it, in my opinion. But I will agree with Alec, though. If, just from looking at the matchup perspective, you get Monday night after Thursday night football, and then you get the bye. The NFL did the Ravens a really big favor there from a player rest perspective.
The last time the Saints were in Baltimore, weren't we all, or at least a subsection of us there for that game?
I think we all were. We all may have been at different areas of the stadium, but yeah.
That's like a terrible memory burned into my brain. We were sitting. We came back to tie with like seconds left, and we're like, "Oh, Tucker just has to hit this extra point. We go to overtime. This is great stuff." And I forget who it was. It might have even been me. Said, "Hold on, wait."
We were together, right, KFisch? And these losers behind us were like, "He never misses," and I was like, "I feel it's like a jinx." Like, I didn't like what they were saying behind us. I don't know, whoever it was. I know I was with one of you guys for that game, and
yeah.
And
then I had to hear "who dat" while I walked down the very long walk.
Back and forth,
right?
Switchbacks.
But see, like that game stings because Tucker missed an extra point. It doesn't sting because the Ravens lost to the Saints. Who gives a crap? We have no rivalry with that team. I guess that's kind of what I'm saying. It's like there's no storylines. I feel like a primetime matchup has to have at least one storyline.
True. Yeah, it almost feels like the Dolphins game last year, right? 'Cause that was primetime too. I think it was a Monday night game or Thursday night. Thursday night
football. I don't know. I view like Sunday night football and Monday night football are the big primetime games in my opinion. Thursday night football is like, first game. Like swap these two. Put Ravens Tampa Bay on Monday night football. Ravens Saints Thursday night football. Boom! I fixed the whole schedule for you, NFL. What were you doing there?
Well, that's fair. Yeah, I get it.
It's fine. You're free to disagree with me, but I will not waver from my opinion.
Sorry, that's just really good.
All right, week 10. Bye.
All right, guys,
we talked about
it's
that.
a bye.
Nothing to talk about here.
Halfway point, perfect halfway point.
This is like
it.
I feel like we always like mildly complain about when the bye week falls. I saw it was week 10 this year, and I was like, perfect. This is the spot I want it to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's nothing more to say. This is a perfect time for the bye. And then, you come off the bye week, and this is interesting because there's two schools of thought here. There's one school of thought that, like, off the bye week, you want to play a heavy hitter on your schedule, and that's not what the Ravens are going to get.
Nope.
Likely. I would say almost certainly. The Ravens will be getting the Carolina Panthers, who will be starting either Sam Darnold or Matt Corral, right? That's who they drafted?
Mayfield?
Maybe Baker Mayfield. I mean, no matter what, like the Panthers are not going to have a quarterback this year.
So talk to Cam too. Don't. Former MVP Cam Newton.
I love Cam Newton. Cam Newton is a shell of himself right now. Yeah. Let's be honest. But yeah, so I mean, it's kind of like 2 bye weeks, maybe. I don't know. They certainly are going to get a game that we can expect. They'll be able to get their legs back after a week of rest pretty easily. Home game as well on top of that. So not much more to say about it than that. Hopefully it's a game the Ravens win by multiple scores pretty easily and can just look forward to the rest of the second half.
I think so too. It's definitely a very winnable game for the Ravens. And then week 12, I mean, just kind of go right into it at Jaguars. Honestly, I think that's a very winnable game as well. We'll see what Trevor Lawrence is in year 2, but year 1 was, I think, for a lot of people, pretty underwhelming, especially given his draft height. The only thing I can say is that I'm glad we're not playing in London for this game. I think that's definitely going to be a win for the Ravens, but certainly 2 very winnable games, I think, back-to-back for them.
Trap game number 2 of the year, if I had to call it. Yep. I'm not thinking that the Jaguars should beat us. Like, that's why it's a trap game, right? But I could see how it could happen because the rest of the schedule gets spicy, except for one game. You could see him looking ahead to the Broncos. So this is an interesting game. The Jaguars can't be worse than they were last year. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. You look at the Ravens' history going to Jacksonville. Since 2000, they've gone there 6 times, and they've got a record of 500. So they've played Jacksonville outside of Baltimore 6 times. So that 500 record in 6 games includes the London game. So technically going down to Jacksonville, the Ravens are 3-2, but they've never beaten Jacksonville by more than 5 points in their home stadium, which is bonkers if you think about it, because some of those games were where the Ravens were pretty decent and the Jaguars ended up being not. So you got to wonder if there's something here. Again, you're going from mild autumn weather in Baltimore and going down south to the humidity of Florida. Is that it? Is that just why the Ravens have struggled in these games? And again, we've seen in the offseason that the coaching staff has been talking about, or at least Harbaugh mentioned in the end-of-year presser, that the coaching staff was going to look at the training program and look at that as a way of mitigating injury. I also wonder if they're going to look at, like, hey, in Miami, certainly we had some issues with the humidity there. Look at, is there some way that they can better prepare the guys for that shock to the body of difference in playing environment, especially since you have 2 games in Florida after September. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know how much we'll have an eye into it, but if I were the Ravens, that's something I would be looking at, whether or not that actually played as big of a role as it might seem last year and in years past.
This will be another one of those games where we get to see how far the O-line has come. They have often producing Josh Allen. They drafted Trayvon Walker. They drafted I'm going to butcher his name, Levon Chason last year, I think. So they have a couple decent names on their D-line and their linebackers. We watched them last year kind of decimate the Bills randomly. So that kind of feeds into that trap game narrative that you guys were talking about. They have some game disruptors. I do hope that the Ravens don't go down there thinking this one's going to be smooth sailing, like the Dolphins couple years ago.
This is a big game. Week 13 against the Broncos at home, 1:00 game. So not getting any special treatment as far as scheduling goes, but probably a pretty big game for the teams. Broncos are obviously experiencing a good new quarterback in Russell Wilson. We will see what that actually means for their production this year. And I'll let Peter talk now.
Well, I put down in the notes that there'll be a small protest outside the stadium before the game. It'll be a one-man protest, just Vic Fangio holding up a cardboard sign that says Ravens don't respect player safety. And, yeah, it'll get drowned out by the crowd of purple going into the stadium.
Oh, man, it's going to be a while before those jokes get old. Like that's everybody's really taking digs at Vic. It's crazy. Even Eric DeCosta and Harbaugh. But this one certainly, I think before the season, before free agency, honestly, this wasn't that exciting. The Broncos were looking like a dumpster team, honestly. But Russell Wilson being there, I think it does change things around a little bit. Certainly, I think it's a game that the Ravens can win. But I think there's some potential here that could be a pretty good matchup. It's a long time, I think, for Russell Wilson to be able to, get his feet wet and to kind of gain familiarity with the offense. By week 13, I mean, he's going to be the guy. So we'll know what kind of player he's going to be on that team.
Yeah, I imagine like 2 or 3 months ago when they released who we were playing and we saw that we were going to play Kyle Trask and Drew Lock. We're like, oh, sweet, 2 wins. And then those turned into Tom Brady and Russell Wilson, slightly different than the previous 2 names. I'm interested in this game to watch. Now I'm blanking on his name. Javonte
Williams.
Javonte Williams.
Well,
yeah,
Javonte Williams, because
RB1.
I would say that like last time we played them, we were not tackling him well. So I think that'll be a good thing to focus on, to see if we've kind of cleaned up that tackling issue. I know some will use the excuse we had janitors out there, but I think
we still do.
Queen was still
basically, you re-signed Josh Bynes.
Yeah. Well, that being said, I'm hoping the tackling goes better this time. I think Marlon Humphrey took a ride on Williams.
Yeah. Nobody could tackle all that game. It was pretty bad. All right. Well, like I said at the beginning, the first 5 weeks this season very important. The last 5 weeks, here we go, guys. Strap in. Very important games. First one at Steelers, 1 p.m. game. I'm just going to go through the list here. At Steelers, at Browns, Falcons, for whatever reason. For home against the Steelers, at Bengals. You've got 4 division games last 5 weeks, almost all of them on the road, and then 1 Falcons game in the middle, which nobody's really going to care about. But let's kick it off. What do we think?
Well, of course, we have to get Pickett in his final form, so to speak, of the year, waiting until week 14, assuming that he'll be playing by then. Perhaps they'll still be using Mitch, but we'll see. That's it's interesting on that front. I think this is a game for the Ravens to win. I do think the Steelers are going to be in a transitional state. I don't think they're going to be a huge threat. It will still be probably pretty close given the nature of the teams, but I believe that these are some dubs for the Ravens.
Man, I really like the AFC as Alex sees it. It's not the AFC as I see it. I tell you, I loved what the Steelers did. And by loved, I mean hated, because I thought the Steelers had an excellent draft. I think that Kenny Pickens is better than people think he is. I think that he is going to be a solid quarterback in the NFL. I don't know if he's going to be a Pro Bowler. I don't know if he's going to be a fantasy football asset, but I think he's someone that you can win football games with if you have a legitimate running attack and a strong defense, which the Steelers always have. I think just they're going to get him on the field sooner rather than later, because Trubisky is not an NFL starting quarterback, and I think with Pickett's age, I think he'll have a very similar rookie season than Mac Jones had last year. I'm looking at Mac Jones 2.0 with Kenny Pickett. I really am, and obviously, they've got a bunch of receivers there that the Ravens will have to deal with. T.J. Watt is still there. I think that the Steelers are going to give the Bengals and the Ravens a run for the AFC North this year, and this game this late in the season is going to be a really interesting one. Yeah,
I haven't watched a ton of Pickett. All I really know is he sat out their bowl game, which is still frowned upon, but particularly I don't care. But if you're saying he has a similar trajectory to Jones, that is kind of scary, because I think he's a lot more mobile than Jones, because
he is. Yep.
Jones is a statue, and I've watched at least the highlights of the Pickett fake kneel to keep running and get another 20 yards in one of his college games. So he's more mobile. So that's concerning. Again, similar to Peter and unlike Alec, I think this is a scary game. The Steelers always play us tight. Steelers fans hate Tomlinson, but he doesn't put out bad products. That team is competing every game. Even if they've given up on the season and put in Pickett and just kind of see what they're gonna get, it's gonna be a rough game.
Yeah.
And in the show notes it says TJ Watt versus Ronnie Stanley, and that's simplifying a problem, I think, down to what it's not even going to be. TJ Watt could attack the right side of our line all day and never see Ronnie at all. So that'll be a problem that we haven't solved, even when we threw backs at him, chipped him. He will always be a game wrecker. This game will probably cause me 3 or 4 heart attacks.
Just gotta hope that Dobbins and Edwards take over at this point, because that's the best way to attack them right now, is that their defense, at least for the last couple of years, just hasn't been really good stopping the run. So just completely neutralize Watt by taking him out with the run game. But yeah,
let's not forget how much success the Ravens had last year with Murray and Freeman against the Steelers defense.
Yeah. Except we still lost that game.
Yeah. The one thing I will say about Pickett, am I playing my hand too hard that I'm giving him a serious thought in rookie drafts coming up? I don't know. But the one thing about Pickett, he did not exhibit in college, even in the last season, very good pocket presence, and was very quick to abandon pockets when he had even, just a single defender breathing on his neck. So if the Ravens are able to scheme up an effective pass rush, even with, a personnel group that a lot of fans think is unideal, I could see that being a huge advantage in playing against a Kenny Pickett-led Steelers offense, looking at it right now. If the Steelers are able to work that out with him, then, it'll be a little harder. But right now, that looks like it is going to be his major weakness in the NFL, and the biggest thing he's going to have to transition to is how he plays against pressure.
And I predict that is why he will not be a good NFL quarterback. I'm just being honest. Like I think that is a fatal flaw in the NFL, and I'm curious if he'll ever get over it or become better at it.
I mean,
that's fair. I mean, and as a Ravens fan, I'd love that. I just look at everything else he does, and I'm like, everything else looks pro-ready. So,
no, I mean, yeah. I get it. It all comes down to that. That's the projection you're making, is his ability to process pressure.
Exactly. Yeah,
and process at a high level in general. So we'll see. That usually takes time. So I would be very surprised if he's there by week 14.
Yeah. Well, and they're setting him up for success, though. I mean, they've continued to try to revamp their line. They have Najee Harris, who's going to get somewhere upward to 300 touches. They've given him 3 wide receivers that are good, and I don't know how you feel about Calvin Austin. That could possibly be a 4th. I mean, he should have everything to succeed, so we'll see how it goes. I was assuming this was going to be your Pickens hype moment, even though you've talked about it previously on the pod.
I think Pickens is dead to Alec now that he's on Pittsburgh.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm hoping that he follows a Mims trajectory at this point.
Basically no chance, but
remember, landing spot doesn't matter.
I know.
Yeah, let's just ignore the team that churns out wide receivers like it's nobody's business. Take random miniature guys and turn them into AB.
KFisch is on the show, so it's worth bringing up. He'll always be the first to tell me that I'm not a real fan because I'll draft players against our own Ravens rivals. So yeah, I mean, don't count me out from picking Pickens at this point. I would think that's a terrible idea. If you think that you pick after me and Pickens is the best player available and he's going to pass me, good luck with that. But
it feels like a like EDC misdirection. Oh, I really don't like him.
All right, week 15 at Browns. It's Mark Andrews week again. Set your rosters.
Absolutely. And I think at this point, unless Watson is hurt, I think we can safely assume that he is the starting quarterback going against the Ravens at this point. If the Ravens hadn't faced him yet, that would make this game even more interesting. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see if this is a game that matters for divisional standing. I'm still of the belief that the Browns will finish 4th in the division this year, but of course, they do have talented players. So as much as I question their offseason, we can still see the Browns at 500 at this point in full contention for a wild card spot, and this game could be one of the late season divisional classics that we've actually seen between these two teams in the past couple of seasons.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Browns, they have a really easy first 4 weeks of the season. Again, NFL scheduling, that's pretty crazy that Watson likely to be out. They have a cakewalk schedule. Anyway, in the middle of the season, they have a lot of their difficult games. So they're playing the Bills, and they have, I think, Tampa after that and a few other hard games in there. So depending how they come out of that middle schedule is kind of, they could be around a 500 team here. They could be really good at that point, or maybe not so good. I think it's a good time, at least, to play them that second game. I do kind of like it. We actually don't know what day this is going to be on. If anybody out there knows what's going on December 17th or 18th, and as to why this doesn't have a set time, let us know. We haven't really figured out why that is, but I think it's certainly it's going to be good. It's going to be a good time, I think, to kind of play the Browns. I do like these late divisional matchups. I think it's going to be good football regardless.
they're like a Cleveland Guardians game that like is in flux or like.
Oh, baseball's over by that time. This game's in December.
I was thinking it might be something like, I don't know, some like Christmas thing, or like, I don't know, NBC has something on television or something at a certain time, and
Watson is actually like the lead clown at the circus that's in town that week. And
Oh man, why don't we just rebrand the podcast to the Deshaun Watson Hate Club?
All right, bye week number 2, week 16 versus the Falcons.
I think we're counting this bye week number 3, unless you're counting week 10 and 11.
That's right, yeah, because double bye week. Yep.
Yeah, well, this is an interesting game. This team's in full rebuild, so I don't even want to call it a trap game. This feels like this should be a slam dunk win.
There's no way. This is already a win for the Ravens. There's no way, unless the entire roster is hurt, and even then, the Falcons are playing for nothing this year. They got Drake London in the draft. He's going to be the number 1 wide receiver for some quarterback not named Marcus Mariota or Desmond Ridder.
I was thinking Ridder would be in this game. They give up on Mariota like week 7, maybe even earlier, and they get to play another rookie quarterback.
Right. Oh yeah, I mean, I guess my point is like I don't expect either of them to be the starting quarterback for the Falcons 2 years from now. I think they're both bridge guys, and they didn't really. Did they bring anyone in from free agency that I'm missing? Any big name?
They traded for Brian Edwards.
So no big names.
I think they lost little bit of their meager pass rush. They have a good cornerback. To answer your question, no,
Yeah, I think that's all we need to say about this game. Kyle Hamilton versus Kyle Pitts will be fun. Other than that,
are you guys just anointing Hamilton as the tight end guy? Like, I don't know. Like, it seemed like Stevens got a lot of that last year. I wasn't disappointed in it.
Stevens will probably still get. I'm sure that Hamilton's not going to be the only guy guarding tight ends. I just thought that was in his draft profile. Like that was what he really. Like that's going to be his skill set at the next level. Is that with his athleticism and his build, he projects to be a guy that teams are going to use to lock down. The team being the Ravens, the Travis Kelce and Mike Gesicki types.
Athletic tight ends. Yeah, no, I get that. I guess I'm a little bit interested to see what they do with Stevens. That kind of seemed like his role, but yeah, like I've seen a lot of like Hamilton slated to do this, and it's something that won't get figured out until we see it on game day.
All right, so after bye week number 3, week 17, home game, last home game of the season, yet again, will be against the Steelers. 1 p.m. for now. I wouldn't be shocked if that's flexed, as I think the Steelers and the Ravens will be neck and neck with the Bengals at this point in a 3-way race for the AFC North title. This is going to be a huge game. I don't know what else to say. It's Ravens Steelers, and what more is there to say? It's going to be a huge game.
Need the dub. It's going to be critical for seeding, I'm sure. So, yeah, I mean, all the same reasons we liked it at week 14 or didn't like it at week 14 probably apply week 17.
And then finish it up with the Bengals again. This could certainly play into playoff seeding, AFC North title. This game could matter for one of these two teams, whether or not they even make the playoffs. Hopefully that would be the Bengals and not the Ravens in that scenario, but the AFC is so loaded. I mean, the Ravens could have a good amount of wins right at this point and still be, what was it, 2020? There was that huge log jam. We could very well see another big log jam again. So I think that the likelihood of this game mattering as far as for playoffs are pretty high.
Yeah, it was. Looking at the schedule when it came out, I don't want to say upset, but kind of bummed because like it feels like this game's going to be super important and would love for it to be at home to reverse the games. Feels like a great advantage for the Bengals. Hopefully it doesn't matter. Maybe we win, 14 games and we get to see Tyler Huntley, and then Ravens flock probably goes off about how Huntley could be a QB1 again. Yeah, this is going to be a huge game.
Very interesting game, being able to see how the Bengals progress from week 5 to week 18. So that's like my biggest interest. How are these two teams different at that point? Unlike the other games, I feel like these are the most extreme, furthest apart, and these teams also probably have the most almost development to make. You could probably argue the Browns will have a lot of development because they potentially have a new quarterback, but I think the Browns are the Browns.
Man, I was looking at other teams in the AFC, and you're like, all right, so all the teams in the Chargers division, which I'm blanking on the division, they're all good. We expect them to be in the hunt. If you want to say the Raiders, we don't like is the down team there. That's fine, whatever. And then I think, realistically, all the teams in our divisions have a chance. I'm a little higher on the Browns than Peter. And then you look at Bills, Patriots, Miami. I think they all have shots. And then, the Titans, the Colts, they get to play the NFC least. So there's some good wins for them. Like, there could be a very large logjam, as you guys were saying, and which, kind of speaks to how important that Week 18 game could really be.
Yeah, teams beat up on each other in this division, for sure. It's going to be difficult. I guess this is the favorite part of the show. We got to predict how many wins the Ravens are going to get this year. 17 games. How might they do? I'm going to say 13. 13-4. High range of outcomes. The vengeance tour is real. Seed 1. Let's go.
So I don't know if you guys saw, like, Cole tweeted out, like, whenever the schedule was released, he's like, all the Ravens fans going to be at 12-5, 13-4. And then Alec comes in hot with the 13-4, literally falling into, that. I was going to say I'm a little more tentative on the Ravens schedule. I think it's going to be a rough schedule. It's definitely not whatever, people were saying, like the fourth place schedule. It's going to be so great. It's definitely not that. I was looking at it and I said 11-6, and I am unhappy with that number. But so I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also going to take a little more conservative approach. I mean, this schedule is brutal for the Ravens. You get a little bit of a break, in the middle of the season, which is good, with the Saints there, and then the bye week, and then the Panthers. I mean, even the Saints, like we're saying, the Saints could be pretty good this year. So maybe that game isn't even easy. Yeah, when I'm looking at this schedule, I think they split the division games. Even Cleveland. Yeah, like, again, I said I think Cleveland's going to finish fourth in this division. I think they're still going to finish very close to 500. I just think that they're not as good as the other three teams in this division. And you got to put Tampa Bay. Looking at it right now, you got to think that's more likely a loss than a win. So that puts my prediction, I guess, at 10-7 for them right now. Wish I could, and again, I don't even think you look at if the Ravens finish 10-7 this year, that might be like finishing with 12 or 13 wins in a normal AFC. The AFC is just so freaking stacked this year. 10-7 could get you the fourth seed in potential. This is going to be a stacked conference this year, and I think that strong teams are going to have lower records than they would in usual years, just because of all the star power that's moved to this conference.
Yes, I agree with you wholly, Peter. I'm looking for us to be the outlier. I think there will be a single outlier in the AFC that has more wins than they probably should. The ball bounces the right way, and I'm gonna put it on the Ravens this year because it fits the narrative.
You'd be off brand if you didn't have the most optimistic fortune forecast for the season.
Someone hasn't gone. Someone hasn't gone yet. Hold on.
Okay.
Just to kind of like go to your outlier thing, like the Bills play. I'm sure you haven't looked at, because I've been looking at it the first time as well right now. They play the Bears, they play the Jets, they play the Lions. Sure, they play our division, but they're gonna get some wins there. I mean, they have a couple like gimme games. They could easily be that outlier that you're talking about.
With the Chiefs no longer having Tyreek Hill, the Bills are a new class of the AFC. I think that if there's going to be an outlier, it's going to be Buffalo. That's my unbiased take.
Reasonable. Chris, go ahead.
All right. Originally, I was thinking 12-5 because I do agree with you guys. The division games are a little scary, I think. And I do think that there's a chance for at least one of the NFC games that they might drop them. Maybe the Tampa game. It might be likely. But then I remembered who we're getting back. And you know what? I play in the narrative, right? I play into that. I think it's definitely a bounce back year for the Ravens. I think we're going to get so many people back from injuries. I think, put it this way, I'm not calling my shot. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm going to say that if the Ravens were to pick up a Julio Jones or somebody that could stretch the field, I think it's going to transform this offense. I think people are going to be a lot more excited about what the Ravens offense can do, and that's really the missing piece. I think the defense is already going to be good. We're going to have the running backs that we need. 15-2, baby. I'm going to call it right there.
Woo!
Okay, so that gives me actual hope because Chris is way more pragmatic than Alec is. So,
Oh, jeez.
I mean, you're right.
I just like to recall the 2019 season. I shot my shot saying that they were going to be awesome, and they were. And
right,
all y'all were
exactly.
pessimistic.
If you sit around all day saying it's 5-12, eventually you're going to be right.
After 4 weeks, you were like, "Fuck, I was really wrong."
And then they just didn't lose again until they did. Well, that's
You
cool.
think Julio's that piece? Like, I don't know. I've been beating the Fuller drum for probably like.
I think if Julio's healthy, he's got to be the move. He's the deep threat. He's got the catch radius. Like, I think at this point, like if he hasn't signed yet, it's because people are waiting if he's healthy. And I think the Ravens have to be. If they know he's healthy, they got to pounce on him.
Interesting. I'd actually rather have Ty than Julio.
I think to be clear, I like Ty, but I think Julio checks more boxes. I think he's that deep threat and he has the catch radius, whereas Ty just is the deep threat.
Ty had that neck injury, and that's just not great.
I mean, I'm just saying of the two. In actuality, I'd rather have neither and just see what Devin Duvernay and Prochet and Wallace can do. But
my bold prediction is the Ravens do not address this position, and it is a scary proposition because they're basically preying on health at that point of the wide receiver position. Because even if you don't lose your top two guys, so to speak, and Bateman and Andrews, I think suffering a single injury to the depth that you have is probably problematic. So
you're talking. What everyone needs to remember, though, is you're talking about your wide receiver 3. We're not talking about wide receiver 2. Mark Andrews is wide receiver 1. Rashad Bateman's wide receiver 1B.
I'm still saying, even if your top two guys are healthy, I think those snaps are important.
I wasn't saying it for you. I was saying it for listeners.
Yeah,
I've seen way too many tweets about how the Ravens need a wide receiver 2. No, we have 2 wide receivers. We're talking about filling wide receiver 3.
Yeah.
Whoa. Then I would like to throw Isaiah Likely in there, wide receiver 3. He's a freak.
Sure, he could be. But he's a question mark right now. I mean, yeah, he's got a ton of potential. He could be that guy, but
I'm okay if they don't get another wide receiver. I think we're going to go out heavy a lot, and I think Ravens fans just need to get used to it. And I honestly think it won't be the worst thing in the world.
I think they're going to sign one. It's going to make nobody happy, but they're going to sign one.
Yeah. I have a feeling it's not going to be Fuller or Julio. So then you're like,
I think we're waiting until training camp for sure. I mean, like there is no reason to sign Julio now until training camp preseason. So
Julio came out and said he's not taking a cheap deal, which I mean, it's nice to say, but
nice to say. Yeah.
Tell Julio he has sniffed a Super Bowl once in his career, and they absolutely and totally whiffed on it. So he needs to join the Ravens. It's his only shot.
I mean, I'm sure that's what he thought last year with the Titans.
Yeah, he thought wrong. Guy couldn't even play.
All right, guys. Well, we made it to the end. Thanks for sticking around. It's been a while. We're really excited, obviously, for this season. The schedule is finally coming out. We know we're crossing those dates off. We know where all the dates are, who the opponents are. We're looking forward to it. As always, we're going to have great Ravens content. The more information we learn throughout the offseason, we'll be here, over here at our new pod, One Winning Pod. So thanks again for listening. And just so you know, we changed our Twitter handles mid-show, actually. So we're no longer at Ravens_recap. We're over at One Winning Pod.
Yep, and like you guys said in the last pod, didn't have to refollow. Keeping it simple for the fans.
I will say, though, you might have to resubscribe in Overcast. I haven't completely sussed out how to do the transition, but it seems like everything else will be very smooth. But we'll keep you posted. I think the game plan is to cross-post episodes for a little bit. But please do subscribe to the new feed in one way or the other. We'll keep you posted as we get it fully developed.
And with that, we'll talk to you guys next time. Go Ravens.
Also, let's make sure to talk about why the heck do we have the most travel for a week in the preseason? Why are we going to Arizona?
They said that was like the first time ever that we've gone to Arizona or something like in preseason, I think.
Yeah, I think like the furthest they've ever gone in preseason has been Dallas. It's like, why?
The whole year we don't travel that much.
We haven't started the show yet.
Okay, sorry.
Also, wait, hold on. Are we doing one winning pod this time? Like, are we going to introduce it that way?
Sure. We teased it last episode, right?
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, the email you sent me said this is the first one for the rebranded show.
We got a new logo in the chat. Ravens Recap is dead. Long live one winning pod.
All right. Well, that's not going to be the end of the show. Little blooper. Peter, this was your name. You do the honors.
All right.